This is a panel with senators and extremely high-profile, well-known public figures on here. They're about to talk about how women are to blame for everything, bizarrely. I mean, it gets wild. One of the people on stage here is Dusty Devers. You guys may remember him on the left there. That's Dusty. He talks about embryonic neighbors being imprisoned in a frozen prison cell. No joke. That is real. And then we got Joel Webbin, who has a microphone right now. Oh my God, all of these people are insane. Hold on, let me find an absolutely psychotic thing here. It's easy. I have like a billion. This is Joel Webbin, if you're unfamiliar.
God appoints some kind of ruler who is unapologetically Christian.
So he's, I guess, describing his ideal situation. Oh, by the way, while we listen to these people, we're going to play some Pokemon Ultraviolet. It's a ROM hack of Fire Red, where I can catch all the Pokemon. So I'm at the very beginning. So let's give this a listen.
And he comes in with a sword and says, I'm sorry, but lawlessness and wickedness will not be tolerated anymore.
Comes in with a sword. So he's going to fight violently is basically the point here, right? He's going to turn it into a dictatorship through violence. Okay, go on.
And he doesn't force conversions, just for the record, because that's another one of the objections.
That is an objection to have. Yes, absolutely. I'm disturbed by the idea that people like this want to force conversion. Okay, so what's he going to do if not force conversion? He's going to allow an open state where anybody can be anything. We're going to have Muslims, atheists, Buddhists, whatevers.
Forcing conversions, but instead what he does is he forces external morality.
Oh, so you can't be Muslim or Buddhist or atheist or Shinto or Hindu or whatever. You have to be Christian. He's going to force people to follow his moral viewpoints on everything.
He doesn't force a change of heart. Only the gospel can do that.
Nobody said that he was going to force a change of heart.
But what a king can do is he can say, whether you're regenerate or not, you're going to pretend.
That's what I had a problem with from the start. Dude said the king isn't going to force conversions, and I know people are freaked out about that. And then he said he's going to force you to pretend to be Christian, though. That is literally what I was afraid of. Are you kidding?
You're at least going to pretend to be Christian. They're not free thinkers. They're not courageous. They're not intelligent.
Talking about men.
They're men, and men must be governed. And if they must...
does that include him? Men must be governed. What a wild thing to say. It's wild to single out any group and say, women must be governed, men must be governed. Why is he saying that?
And if they must be governed, then our prayer as Christians is that they would be governed in the right direction, at least. For the good of the church.
For the good of the church. This is Doug Wilson. He's the next one on stage, right to the right of him. Listen to what Doug Wilson said. It's just a few seconds long.
The president could issue a proclamation that acknowledged that Jesus rose from the dead, and Congress could authorize the funds to have that proclamation printed and bound, read in all the schools, and posted in all the federal courthouses. That could be fun. The Supreme Court could take up a new religious liberty case, ideally one with Jack Phillips in it, and in their decision they could reaffirm and reboot the decision of the Supreme Court in the 1892 Holy Trinity versus the United States case, in which the court determined that the United States was in fact a Christian nation and had been such.
That sounds like a completely fictitious situation. I don't know anything about what he's saying here. In fact, I should look this up. Hold on. What was it called?
In the 1892 Holy Trinity versus the United States.
All right, Holy Trinity v. U.S. case. Okay, so there's an 1885 law. Contracts to import labor were forbidden by federal law, specifically by the Allen Contract Labor Law, an act of Congress passed in 1885 prohibiting the importation and migration of foreigners and aliens under contract or agreement to perform labor or service of any kind in the U.S. Okay, I don't understand. What's a controversial thing here? Okay, I have my wife here who is in law school, third year, so she's going to talk a little bit about the case.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for causing technical difficulties. For clarity, I haven't read it all the way through, and I don't particularly want to because I hate reading cases from the 1800s. It's about as dry as you would imagine. I did do a quick glance over it, though, and it looks like this is a case that Christian nationalists would love.
Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge your religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video.
Background. So United States had a prohibition on allowing people from outside the country to come in and work. And from what I can tell, a church decided to bring a pastor over from the UK and have him work. Obviously, that was a violation of the law, and it made its way to the Supreme Court, who basically said, well, yes, technically it's a violation of the law, but we didn't mean to keep out those kinds of people. You know, we are a good Christian nation, therefore, good Christian people should be allowed in.
So was this the first, Christian, or was this the first, religious liberty case, or one of the early ones? Not first, but one of the early, because this is from 1897, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few beforehand, but
1800s, early 1800s, I think, right? Yeah.
But the idea that the United States was a pluralistic country as far as religion goes hasn't really been a contentious issue up until the 1960s. There are definitely some issues here and there, but by and large, people understood and respected the idea that the church and government should remain in separate spheres. Originally, it was popularized by the idea that allowing government and church to interact and mingle would end up poisoning the church itself. And it's since become more of a, we need to keep religion out of government.
But not government, or keep government out of religion, but not religion out of government, right? Is that what you were going to say? Sorry, I finished your sentences. Go ahead.
So yeah, originally it was we need to make sure that these two spheres are separate so that the government doesn't poison religious exercise. Now, though, our general understanding up until the past 10 years or so was that religion and government need to remain separate because it's important to maintain a secular government. Otherwise, we lose the pluralistic aspect of our society. And
that makes sense.
But I would imagine that Christian nationalists really love this case because a Supreme Court justice outright says this is a Christian nation.
Interesting. But it wasn't a ruling, I guess. Is that right? Or was it a ruling?
It was more what's called dicta, which is you have a holding within the case, which is the final rule that you're supposed to pull out. And then the dicta is kind of the reasoning and analysis surrounding it. And that is where this whole Christian nation came into play, was through the dicta. And even still, that isn't accurate because the United States has never been founded as a religious country. In fact, the founders went out of their way to remove any mention of God from the Constitution. At best, from what little I've analyzed this justice was probably referring to the idea that the majority of the people within the country then and now really were Christians. And so it would be generally against public policy to prohibit a Christian pastor from coming into the country and working, just because that didn't reflect society.
Interesting. So they weren't talking about how he thinks the laws should be written, but he was describing the societal structure at that moment. Is that right?
Well, again, I haven't read through and taken a deep analysis of this case, and it's from the 1800s, so I really don't want to.
Right, that makes sense.
Just from my brief glance over, it seemed that it's more likely that this justice was referring to general society as being religious and likely referring to society being Protestant at the time than he was to refer to the country being a Christian country as one whose foundation is built on religion and whose laws derive from religious values.
Interesting. Okay. Well, is there anything else you wanted to add about the case?
Yeah, it's really, really stupid that a case from the 1800s would be cited by anyone, let alone Christian nationalists who want to make a case. It's over what is it, almost 150 years old now, so it really doesn't hold a lot of weight, generally speaking. Even if this weren't just dicta,
Yeah.
It's don't put a lot of weight on it like they do. It's just kind of, it's all they have, and so they're holding on to it for dear life. Kind of like, you know, the guy who's kind of using his toupee to hold on to what little hair he has left.
Okay, that makes sense. So with that in mind, give me just a second. I want to play that clip one more time so that you can hear it.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen this or not, but this is Doug Wilson. He's a Christian nationalist.
I bet he's wearing a toupee.
Yeah, it looks like it.
The president could issue a proclamation that acknowledged that Jesus rose from the dead, and Congress could authorize the funds to have that proclamation printed and bound, read in all the schools, and posted in all the federal courthouses.
No,
that
none of this.
would be fun.
The Establishment Clause would prohibit all of this from happening.
Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. owenmorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video. Well, like has been practiced throughout history with extremist groups and dictatorships and stuff, I think that their goal is to kind of stretch the Constitution as far as it can go. Maybe just take that little leap into breaking it a little bit. You know, like Donald Trump wants to pardon himself. That's not really part of the Constitution. I mean, it doesn't explicitly forbid it. He's stretching it heavily, right?
From my understanding, one of the things they want to do is overrule a case, which I believe, don't cite me on this, is called Engel versus Vital. And that was basically one of the landmark cases that prevented religion from being in schools. So if that case and others like it get overruled, then yeah, I guess they could do this, but that would be really, really bad, and it would suck.
It's all like just stretching things as far as it'll go.
The Supreme Court could take up a new religious liberty case, ideally one with Jack Phillips in it, and in their decision, they could reaffirm and reboot the decision of the Supreme.
I'm not sure who Jack Phillips is. Have you heard the name? He's probably a Christian nationalist that I should already know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel about the same. I probably should know him, but I don't.
All right, well, he's probably like some hero, like of the style of like God's Not Dead. You know, he's like one of the professors in God's Not Dead or something.
They could reaffirm and reboot the decision of the Supreme Court in the 1892 Holy Trinity versus the United States case, in which the court determined that the United States was, in fact, a Christian nation.
No, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of the case. The holding was that bringing a pastor in from outside the country wasn't what the law was intending to target. It wasn't ruling that this is a Christian nation, and this is somebody who is citing to legal cases without having any understanding of the law and wanting to sound really, really smart by doing so.
And he's framing it as though it's the entire intent behind the case was to prove that the U.S. is a Christian nation, right?
Right. And if you look, there's something that courts look to called legislative history, which are all the documents, committee hearings, and everything that happen when a statute, a law, or an amendment is passed. And we can look at the legislative history of the Constitution itself, and we can see through the different iterations, the different drafts, they purposely removed mentions of God and only referenced human rights as opposed to rights that exist due to religion.
It's super interesting. I know in the Declaration of Independence, they said that we're all created equal and our rights are endowed by God, so on and so forth. But the reason they said it was because it was like they were trying to frame it as they don't come from government. They come from somewhere other than government so that they can't be removed. But they didn't do that in the Constitution.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't it reference the creator, not the Abrahamic God?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, creator.
Yeah. And during this time, what we understand as human rights were understood as natural rights. And those were laws given by nature, by nature's creator. That doesn't reference any religious God as would be found in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or others. It's more of just like referencing Mother Nature.
Interesting. I had no idea.
Christian nation, and had been such from the beginning. or the Apostles' Creed could be incorporated into the Constitution. None of these actions would establish a particular Christian denomination as being the mascot of the government.
No denomination, but it clearly establishes Christianity, right? That's a religion.
Yeah, and this guy makes me want to slam my head against the wall.
Yeah.
The Establishment Clause says that the government shall not establish a religion. That means valuing one religion over another, one denomination or perspective on a religion over another, or even religion over non-religion. The government should remain neutral when it comes to religion, and not just neutral when it comes to a religious denomination.
Absolutely psychotic. So anyway, that's Doug Wilson, and that's what he had to say about the 1892 Trinity case. Just insane. Anything else you wanted to say?
Again, just that I want to slam my head against the wall after having listened to him. And if he's wearing a toupee, I will admit it's a nice toupee.
Okay. Yeah, not too bad. It's hard to tell, but I could be convinced. All right, thanks for coming. Anyway, there you go. There's a breakdown of Doug Wilson's misinterpretation and misrepresentation. Is anybody surprised by that? That he misrepresented reality? Point is, Doug Wilson is absolutely psychotic, as is Joel Webbon, as is Dusty Devers, and the other people on stage. So let's listen to what these people had to say at this, man convention or something. I don't even know what this is. Live panel on biblical patriarchy and Christian nationalism. Yeah, let's listen.
Is to talk about biblical patriarchy. Eric just did a great job on the topic, and now putting into a little bit more into practice and discussion format. And let's begin by just praying. Father, we pray that you would bless our time together, help us to be wise, help us to be clear in our discourse. And we just pray that all that we say would be ultimately for your glory and the good of your people. We pray this for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Oh, God, that was Joel Webbon saying the prayer. That's psychotic. That guy is just nuts. I think he's probably one of the crazier ones on stage. Or he's one of the ones that's more willing and open to say absolutely psychotic stuff and just not care.
Okay, I'm just going to dive right in so that we don't build up to exciting discourse. We can just
please
have it right away. So this is my first question for all of you. It's a agree or disagree question with the follow-up being why. And we'll go individually. Everybody gets to answer. Take as long as you want. And it could be just the only question for 90 minutes, and it might get us all the... I have a feeling. So...
I have a feeling about what? He's very obviously nervous, right? I've been there, but I can revel in the nervousness of somebody else.
It has been said recently on Twitter.
Weasel words. Weasel words. It has been said. Who said this exactly? Give me names. I want to know what people you're quoting. Don't just say it has been said. That's unacceptable. If you notice, go back as far as you can. 8 years on YouTube. I have never in my life said it has been said. That is not a good way of getting to truth about anything. Who said it? If you don't tell me who said it, I'm going to assume you made it up.
The word was mirror, and I did not like it.
You mean mirror, not mirror.
But that tradwives is...
That somebody's telling, or my wife's saying that it's mere, like MEAR. Okay.
and I did not like it. But that tradwives is the mirror, kind of exact opposite, like two sides but of the same coin. The mirror movement of red pill. Agree?
Okay. Tradwife is the mirror movement of the red pill movement. So if you're unfamiliar with either of these, because you just dip into religion and not, social issues like this very much. Tradwives are people who believe that, women should be in the kitchen and birthing babies and nothing else. And they're women that are doing this. It's like Jews for Hitler kind of thing. That really existed, by the way. Seriously. It was disbanded in 1935, 2 years after he took power. Anyway, that's unrelated. The point is that tradwives are obsessed with bringing us back to some mythical past that never existed. And as a matter of fact, so are these guys. The red pill movement, I suppose, is what these people are from. The Christian nationalist wing of the red pill movement. I'm only getting Mankeys in this little section. I would really love it if okay, well, I got a Rattata and that's useless.
Disagree, and why? Eric, I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah, so
I don't know these 2 or 3 people on the right side.
I would disagree. Yeah. And the basic reason why is I think when you look at the red pill movement, I think the guy that most people will think of is Andrew Tate. So if
Sure. So he's saying that he represents or agrees with what Andrew Tate says. Okay. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen anybody who would embrace that so openly. Again, if you don't follow social movements very much, let me, I have this whole like Chrome tab on Hitler. Just disregard. Let me find the first video that I ever watched from Andrew Tate. First one. Yeah, here you go. This is so stupid. Listen to this. This is from July 11th, 2022. This is the first time I heard the dude. I was on TikTok, which I don't get on very often, and I happened across this.
If you ever see a man who's talking about food, oh, I had this amazing steak at this one restaurant. This steak is...
He looks like such a fucking asshole here, doesn't he? Like, he screams prick from the top of the mountains. God, it's those stupid glasses.
This steak is so amazing.
No, it's the whole ensemble. It's not just the glasses. The glasses are okay on their own.
Restaurant, this steak is so amazing. He's broke. He's a brokey.
He says brokey.
If the steak was so amazing, he'd eat every day. And he'd eat every...
Dude doesn't understand moderation. This is so goddamn stupid. I don't know what to do with this.
Every day to the point where he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. But he doesn't do that because he can't afford it. You understand?
So I understand that this is dumb as dog shit. That's what I understand. It is so stupid. How did this guy get popular? He says the stupidest shit.
Never see anyone talking about bragging about the meal they cooked or this ingredient they got or that steak they had. Just do, because people do that to me all the time. And I'm just sitting there going, you're poor. Interesting. Oh, you're broke. Yes, okay. Oh, you went.
That's really all he thinks about when he sees somebody's looking for how broke they are. Are you serious? By the way, notice that he has like a caption that says Tate orders food like a real G. Tate orders food like a real G.
Oh, you're broke. Yes, okay. Oh, you went on your birthday and had that steak. Oh, wow. Once a year. Broke talk. Brokies. Real G's every day. Minor. Ain't a thing.
So stupid, dude. It's so stupid and cringy. It makes me want to it makes me shake and shiver. Hearing this stupid shit makes me shiver. It gives me like flashbacks to the stupid shit I said in elementary school. That's where we're at right now with this conversation. Anyway, that's Andrew Tate. That is who represents these people's philosophy, I guess. He's the pinnacle, Andrew Tate is, of their belief system, according to this guy.
Most people will think of is Andrew Tate. So if you follow the red pill movement down through like Andrew Tate, what are you going to get? You're going to get
complete garbage.
Like Bugattis and a harem, right? And I think then when you look at...
Okay, that's fair enough. You're going to get cars and bitches, I would say. That's what his side of the movement represents, cars and bitches. Sure, I can go with that one.
You're going to get like Bugattis and a harem, right? And I think then when you look at something like trad wives, for the most part, it's like if what I get out of that is like pretty dresses and sourdough, I feel like that's a different thing than Andrew Tate. So...
Wait, so is he saying that the trad wife movement is preferable to Andrew Tate because they don't believe in getting bitches?
Oh, that's my basic disagree. And I know Brian, we were actually talking about this. He's got a long, beautiful...
Let's hear Brian. That's great.
He's a sweet psalmist of Ogden. I mean,
bro, if you keep talking about how beautiful this dude is, I'm going to think that you're gay or something. That's not something Tate would approve of. Something I'd approve of, but not Tate. You know what? I think that's the problem. If this dude just turned gay for this guy, not turned gay, but admitted that he's gay for this dude, I think things would even out a lot better than they are right now.
Let's hear Brian. That's great.
He's a sweet psalmist of Ogden. I mean,
there's more to be said, but everything you said, I personally agree.
Bro, you're speaking to the wrong audience to be making those jokes. That's why it was dead silent in the hall.
But Brian,
nuance, and it depends. As it's stated, if I have to say yes or no, I'd say no. I can see how you would get there from a certain line of reasoning, and it would go like this. The red pill manosphere is responding to real, actual problems in the
No, it isn't.
world, where people are disobeying God and the nature that he gave them. And so there are all sorts of problems when that happens. There are problems in marriages where...
What kinds of problems? Wait, what is he talking about? Problems in marriages? What kind of problems arise from people disobeying God's natural order or whatever the hell?
Men are getting married and maybe committing no covenant-breaking sin, and then one day find their wife of 10, 20 years gone with the kids, go into court, get a no-fault divorce.
He's blaming the woman. He's blaming the woman in this situation. He started out blaming the man as being too effeminate and weak because the man is like breaking covenants because he's not following God's orders. And then he morphed in, while describing the consequences of the man's actions, he morphed it into the woman is to blame because it's no fault. No, you just described the fault. The man was at fault here, right? Are men never at fault in any situation?
And take his kids and half his income for 18 years, right? So one of the things that happens when that becomes the legal background of our culture, which it very much is.
God, it's so stupid. It's like, I don't even know how to describe how stupid this is. I got to come up with a really, really good comparison to compare this to something like just really, really stupid. And I'm going to use it in every situation.
Is that you're going to have a reaction that's just based on people having eyes in their head. And some men are going to say, well, our culture's been very anti-men in lots of ways, so let's be pro-men. But then one of the dangers of that is that you can have a pro-men message, which is severely lacking in our culture, that is then, but not governed by Christ.
My God, dude. All right, here's the thing. Here's my position on this quote-unquote pro-men message. I'm going to take a little bit of an aside here for a second. Just bear with me. We'll come back to the pro-men message thing, okay? I do this thing sometimes, take asides. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a eugenics movement. You guys may be familiar with that. It is kind of what drove the Holocaust. And it wasn't just in Germany that this was taking place. It was in the United States, too. And there was some real horrific shit happening back then. People were pulling disabled people off of the streets and sterilizing them or killing them. In Germany, they put them in camps and then just started executing them. For real. That's how the executions began. Anyway, the belief is that it was a kindness to do good, to help these people. They believed themselves to be like on the left, the eugenics movement did. Of course, we now know that it aligns nicely with the far right and extremism, obviously. Back then, they had two different kind of perspectives on eugenics. One was we should kill people or sterilize them if they're not valuable to society in some real way, a tangible way. They used to have beauty pageants where they would rate children. I guess they still kind of have that. But it was a more common thing. They'd rate them on how pretty their teeth are or how straight their eyes are symmetrical or whatever. So they moved in the United States, the eugenics movement, it moved from one of positive change to negative change. So one of having a baby that looks and acts a certain specific way, changing that to removing people from society instead of adding people to society. That's where it really went off the rails, in my opinion, if nowhere else. I mean, it's still wrong in my mind to, if you're a blonde, blue-eyed white guy, it's wrong for you to not marry somebody who's not also blonde and blue-eyed because you want to turn yourself into a master race or some other shit. That's weird. That is really weird. But you know what? That's your right. I'm not going to trample on that. You want to be a little weirdo? Go nuts. In the same vein, what this guy was saying here, listen again.
Our culture's been very anti-men in lots of ways. So
the point that I'm trying to get to here is that I'm not anti-man. I'm in favor of positive change. I want to help. I want to improve the conditions of men, the conditions of women, the conditions of everybody. I'm not opposed to any of that. It's just this isn't happening, what he's describing here. This is fictitious. There aren't these big problems for men that exist like this. He's not saying he wants to improve things for men. He's saying he wants to make things worse for women. Well, that's what he's doing, even if he's not saying it. He wants to make things worse for everybody else. He wants to force women into the kitchen to cook food for him and have babies, and that's it. That's not fixing a man problem. That's changing women. That's the issue. Negative changes versus positive changes.
Let's be pro men. But then one of the dangers of that is that you can have a pro men message, which is severely lacking in our culture, that is then, but not governed by Christ. So then they say, what should a
No, I guess that's Andrew Tate.
man be and do? And then they're just going to answer that question, most often in the manosphere world, through an evolutionary perspective and worldview, and go back to Greek and Roman philosophy and Stoicism. And you end up with working out, high tea, eat steak, and have a harem, which is just a different way of ruining the world than...
It's ruining the world to have a harem and eat steak? Was this guy vegan?
The way that they were reacting to. The same thing happens in our world on the side of femininity, where femininity can be corrupted in multiple directions, just like masculinity can. And so you're going to have counter movements reacting to that. One thing you can have that is certainly a part of the trad wife movement, which, by the way, I'm not an expert in, and don't...
No fucking shit. Really? You're not an expert in the trad wife whatever? I don't think you're an expert in anything.
Part of the trad wife movement, which, by the way, I'm not an expert in, and don't follow trad wife accounts.
He's also not an expert in grammar.
Because I'm married. I have a wife who makes sourdough and wears dresses, a good fair bit of the time.
Really? Tell me more about how you have a real non-fiction wife who most definitely cooks bread and wears dresses most of the time. You know who doesn't have wives 99% of the time? People who say shit like that.
And wears dresses, a good fair bit of the time. But you can have sort of a pin-up, pornified version of traditionalism that's actually, at its root, ultra not traditional. And it's just women who are wearing low-cut shirts on Instagram or TikTok and monetized. They're getting a lot of airplay out of a trend, which is a reaction to feminism and the flattening of all sexual distinctions.
He's literally describing women wearing low-cut tops and being, he's describing hoes, basically, right? Hoe bags? Who we used to call them in high school, hoe bags? That's what he's describing right now. Nothing against being a hoe bag, by the way. Go get your hoe bag on. I don't care. But he just said that this is a flattening of femininity or a flattening of gender in society. What? No, it's not. It's literally the exact opposite of what you just said.
Is a reaction to feminism and the flattening of all sexual distinctions. So then we have androgyny. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to have hyper...
What? We have androgyny. How did this turn into an anti-trans message? Where did this come from? How did we get here?
Femininity that is actually ends up not being feminine at all. Same thing with the red pill in a sense. So I see
it stops being feminine when you start wearing like low-cut tops. Is that what he's saying?
That, but the difference that I would say is that I don't think that that's the dominant note of the vast majority of the content that I see around the traditional femininity kind of world. A lot of it genuinely is, I think, women reclaiming roles in the home as being a helper, cooking, caring for your people, clothing them well, undoing some of the ill effects of the Industrial Revolution. That's
ill effects of the Industrial Revolution, you say? Tell me more. Sadly, I don't think he's going to. What could he mean by ill effects of the Industrial Revolution when talking about society and culture?
Atomizing the home and tearing everybody in a million directions. So on the surface, I would say they are different because the heart of the manosphere movement, really the dominant notes, and I've spoken at Manosphere Conference.
Okay, the Industrial Revolution happened in the 1850s, right? Is that when was the Industrial Revolution? I think it was it was 1760 to 1840. Okay, I was close. I was on the wrong end, I guess. So what happened in 1760 to 1840 culturally that this guy doesn't like? It sounds like what he's describing is when women started getting jobs in factories during World War II because all the men were over there fighting Nazis. I think that's what he's describing. You talking about the time when a bunch of those, what's her name? That woman that has the fist and the we can do it together or whatever. What's her name? I forget now. My Aunt Pat used to have one of these. What was her name? She had a name. Rosie the Riveter. I knew it. Rosie the Riveter. I can't believe I got that on the first guess. Yeah, is he talking about Rosie the Riveter? Does he have any idea what he's talking about? Is he just like spouting off random nonsense?
So on the surface, I would say they are different because the heart of the manosphere movement, really the dominant notes, and I've spoken at manosphere conferences, and it's like, at the heart of it, the dominant note is evolutionary harem building, pickup artistry, absolute filth, about 98% of it, in my experience.
Yeah, okay, sure, I agree. Yeah, 98% of it is pure, unadulterated filth. Just people being complete scumbags. God, imagine being a woman and going to one of those manosphere conferences. I would not feel safe. Absolutely not. I would have to carry, like, I would have to have a bodyguard with me at all times to attend one of those if I was a chick. Anyway, so he's going to draw a distinction between the manosphere, quote unquote, Andrew Tate, and his movement based on Christ. Okay, I'm listening.
Experience. And then in the trad wife movement, I think it's a very different ratio that's actually, a lot of it is genuinely Christian. I think quite a bit of it is genuinely Christian. So
here's the interesting thing about the two movements. This is getting back to a distinction I drew earlier. I would not feel safe as a woman going to a manosphere conference with it, like Andrew Tate followers and pickup artists and stuff. But I would feel safe as a man going to a tradwife conference. You know why? Because tradwives are actively choosing to make a decision for themselves when the manosphere people like Andrew Tate are making decisions for other people, or they're trying to impose decisions on their wife or their girlfriends or their whatever. And they're teaching other people how to impose those interests and beliefs and decisions on others. If you want to be a weird little nutcase who cooks bread, sourdough, and makes babies all day, don't let me stop you. Go nuts. I don't care if women want to do that. I do care that they're trying to push it on other women, but ultimately what they're doing is not harmful to other people, except for themselves. The people that make that decision are the only ones that are really harmed by it. But the men in this equation are actively harmful and actively advocating for harmful things. As I said earlier, positive change versus negative change. There can be positive change for something that is really, really bad and shouldn't exist. And I can, advocate against it, like the tradwife thing. Positive change isn't always good. But in my opinion, negative change like this is almost always bad.
I want both to return to nature. Really, the answer to me is like, I want men to return to faithful, monogamous, covenant marriage in Christ's name. I want women to return to older women, teach the younger women to be workers at home, love your children, love your husband,
And I really want this guy's mom to give me a call back. That'd be fantastic.
Turn to older women, teach the younger women to be workers at home, love your children, love your husband, lest the word of God be reviled. That's what I want to see. So I think there's some missing on both sides, but some of it does have to do with your perspective. What are you looking at on Instagram? What's the algorithm feeding you? Because there certainly is pinup version of trad wife culture out there. So that was a typical, Eric says no, and then I talk for 5 times longer and say nuanced. Welcome to the King's Hall podcast. That's basically.
Great.
Oh, do they have a podcast together? Is that what it is? King's Hall? King's Hall podcast. Let's see if I can get an idea of how big this podcast is. It's nearly impossible to tell how big a podcast is because you have no objective way of looking at their numbers. But I can compare how many ratings they have on theirs to how many ratings I have on mine. How many ratings do I have? Like how many people have liked it or whatever? Because there's usually a pretty solid ratio of likes to views, right? I have 315 ratings on my podcast. They have 866. So they are extremely influential. They're like, well, the podcast at the very least is at least twice as big as mine. My main channel is significantly, I don't know, my main channel may be about as big as they are, roughly, on YouTube. 400,000 subbies. I say that's about right.
Really just means no.
Right. Pastor Doug.
So I agree with everything that's just been said thus far. I would maybe
no fucking shit. Really, you do? You agree with everything that these people on stage are saying? Knock me over with a feather. That's incredible. I did not see that coming.
I agree with everything that's just been said thus far. I would maybe to set the cat among the pigeons.
Set the cat among the pigeons.
I would also say there was nothing in what was just said that was inconsistent with what Allie Beth said in that first clip.
So there's nothing inconsistent with the trad wife movement is what he's saying, I guess. I don't know Allie Beth, but okay. I assume she's a trad wife.
She was saying, okay, this is great, nothing against sourdough, nothing against, but there's a way of pretending, which you just said, and I've certainly seen before. We went through this back in the 80s and 90s. There was another version of the same sort of thing with the homeschool.
There was?
School mom, and there was a same sort of thing. And
I don't remember that. I was like a little kid in the 90s, like not even conscious yet, but I don't remember it. I mean, I've been in this field for a long time. I don't remember anybody ever mentioning the 90s as like the start of the trad wife movement or whatever. What is he talking about?
As a pastor, I came to the conclusion that there's sometimes an inverse ratio between the size of the head covering and the submissiveness of the woman. Right?
Okay. Is he saying he wants women to wear head coverings?
Why does your wife wear a head covering to church? She insisted.
He is. He's saying women should wear head coverings. That is wild. You know, my mom wore a head covering from time to time. Jehovah's Witnesses think you should. I don't know if you guys knew this. It's only when there's a man present who could be leading, or, well, let me rephrase. It's only when a man is present, when that man is qualified to lead in one way or another, but the woman is leading anyway. So if my dad was disabled and while he pretended to have chronic pain, big long thing, Munchausen syndrome. Anyway, he was not in shape, mentally or physically, whatever it happened to be, to like lead a Bible study, Jehovah's Witness style with people. So if my mom was holding a kind of a leadership position with another man like me, I was baptized, but not really in Jehovah's Witnesses' eyes old enough to like take the lead fully yet. She had to wear a head covering to show her deference or her submissiveness to me and to my dad. So I guess in some cases, some Christian denominations have interpreted the Bible as saying that you should wear a head covering. I don't know what this dude's justification is. It sounds like his justification is just, I like women who wear head coverings. I don't think there's a religious justification here for him.
Yeah. So, okay. So, to echo what you just said and to amen it, domesticity is discipleship.
Domesticity. Okay, that's a new word. You mean being domestic? Go on.
Domesticity is the calling that God has called women to. And this is the apostolic instruction is that women are to be busy at home, they're to be keepers at home, they're to give themselves over to it so that the word of God may not be blasphemed. But discipleship is hard. You know, it's challenging. Being a godly husband and a godly father is challenging. And it's the same with being a godly woman. And it's easy to be godly on Instagram, basically.
But that's what they were complaining about earlier. Did you miss that? They're not complaining about women being godly on Instagram. They're complaining about them being ungodly on Instagram.
Can take a photo of my quiet time and not have to go through it.
I'm sorry. What the hell is he talking about? Did he just lose the plot? I mean, I can't knock it. I've done that before, I guess. I've just lost where I was completely.
So agree. I think I'm certain that I would have disagreements with Allie Beth at various junctures. But I think that what she was saying in that initial clip.
Again, I don't know who this is. Valley Beth? The only head covering I have is my hair. Well, that's actually what the Bible was describing when it talked about women wearing head coverings. It said her hair should serve as a veil. Basically, it was saying women should have long hair. And it was Old Testament, I think. Where was it? No, I'm sorry. It was New Testament. In 1 Corinthians 11:10, apparently. Hold on, let me just verify that. That's why a wife ought to have a symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. For this reason, because the angels are watching, a woman should wear a head covering on her head to show she is under authority. I don't remember the context behind it, but I believe the context is basically she should
wear her hair as a head covering. Somebody can correct me if that's wrong. Talking about Allie Beth Stuckey. Oh, a right-wing influencer. I'm not familiar with her. Let's look at one of her most popular clips of all time. Okay, I don't know who this person is, but let's just like pull up one of her clips. Or, well, this isn't one of her clips. This is a clip from the Daily Wire talking about one of her viral clips. So check this out. She was ragging on AOC, I guess.
I am not the expert on geopolitics. Didn't you major in international relations in college? Middle Eastern politics is not exactly what's at my kitchen table every night. Venezuela is not in the Middle East.
Oh, I see. So they're taking her out of context and she's responding to her as though it was a real interview when it wasn't. Did AOC say Venezuela was in the Middle East?
I may not use the right words. My name is Allie Beth Stuckey. I host a podcast called Relatable, where we
That is a very baggy outfit.
analyze news, culture, theology, sometimes politics from a Christian conservative perspective.
Oh, she's on the Blaze. Is that right? Glenn Beck's network? That's what it appears.
I've done some satirical videos. I started out doing them just for fun, like on my phone, talking just from kind of like the liberal perspective and making hyperbolic.
It's not that it's baggy. Baggy is fine. It's the sleeves that bother me. It's weird. The way, like, because they come out in a puff, like old school Renaissance style puff, you know? And then they turn into like an elastic rubber band that's cutting off the circulation to her arm. That's what's weird about this outfit, not that it's baggy.
Talking just from kind of like the liberal perspective.
See what I'm saying right there? Look, you see? That's weird. That's just odd to me.
And making hyperbolic arguments from that angle to try to show the ridiculousness of the liberal side.
Wait a minute. Did she just say, I make hyperbolic, ridiculous arguments against the other side to show how hyperbolic and ridiculous the other side is? Is that basically what she just said? Let's listen one more time. Sorry.
From that perspective and making hyperbolic arguments from that angle to try to show the ridiculousness of the liberal side of.
That's, so you're saying you're misrepresenting the other side then, right? Isn't that literally what that means, what she just said?
Certain things, and then I expanded on that and made a satirical ad for the DNC. That was back in 2018.
Democrats are the party of love and tolerance. We promote inclusion and acceptance, peace, and goodwill.
And that kind of went viral.
New Democrat campaign ad. I don't know what the...
We promote inclusion and acceptance, peace, and goodwill.
I don't know what's the point she was trying to make there. She's saying that, like, there are protesters. She's just showing protests. Are you trying to tell me that, like, the right never protests and or that protesting is bad, that you shouldn't do it ever? What?
That kind of went viral, and I did a couple other things. I did a fake...
I have a couple of videos with roughly... Well, I have, 1.5 million views on one of my videos, so not 3.7, but it's in that range, I suppose.
And goodwill.
And that kind of went viral, and I did a couple other things. I did a fake interview with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez where I spliced up some of her answers from PBS interview, I believe that it was, and added my own questions to kind of make it sound like she was saying things that were even dumber than they actually were, which was not very difficult.
I don't understand.
So she lied. This is a lie then, right? Am I wrong here? She's just like completely misrepresenting and lying about what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was saying and or doing. That's called lying. That's called misrepresenting. Anyway, apparently that's who they're talking about on this this whole thing. I've never heard of her before, but okay. I don't have a problem with people being hyperbolic. That's okay. But I was actually tricked by it. I went in knowing that it was like a right-winger and not like, and when I got into it, she framed it up as though it was real. You know, it's acceptable to satirize a situation and pretend that you're interviewing somebody if it's like very obviously fake.
That's tomorrow. And that is it for us today. Okay, I don't know.
Just read it, Bill.
Whatever. See, this is obviously fake. This is acceptable. I'm okay with things if they're like clearly satirical. But when you do something like what the other person did, whatever her name is, Allie Beth Stuckey, when you do something like that and you like just cannot tell, that's not okay, seems to me.
Here it is. It's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
I know you haven't seen it because you have the IQ of a turnip, you hapless gorilla. Just read it.
Yeah, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
The words are right here. What's the matter with you? Are you blind as well as stupid? How can someone have a head that large without anything in it? Is it just fluid up there?
This is fun. Anyway, the point is that this is obviously satirical, right? There's like no question. What this girl did is not obviously satirical. It looks like it's an actual interview here.
They actually were, which was not very difficult.
I don't understand.
Whenever I can,
Just make sure it's obvious next time. That's all.
satirize the left. I love to spend my time and energy doing that because it's really fun and it also happens to be pretty effective.
So here's a response from Ocasio-Cortez.
Wow, she's even been on like Fox News? I had no idea.
It's really fun and it also happens to be pretty effective.
So here's a response from Ocasio-Cortez. Republicans are so scared of me that they're faking videos and presenting them as real on Facebook.
Yeah, it didn't look like satire at all.
Because they can't deal with reality anymore. Here's one bona fide truth. Election day is November 6th. What do you think?
Look, we already know that socialists don't understand basic economics.
She's not a socialist. Socialist is kind of an ambiguous term. It kind of depends on like what you mean by socialist. But just looking at the literature, basically, socialist could mean advocating for social programs like Social Security, universal health care, unemployment insurance is a big one under socialism, and also having purely co-op companies rather than private companies. So it's worker owned. Like if you are an employee at a company, you own a piece of the company and you have a vote in everything. You vote for your manager and your bosses all the way up the chain. That's what socialism is. Communism is state-owned rather than employee-owned. So it's just like people work at these companies and do their jobs, and the state pays them whatever. Communism has not been enacted the way it's described in literature before. I'm not really sure it would work. I don't know. But socialism isn't like basically communism. They're not the same thing, despite the fact that these people tried to convince others that they're basically the same. They're not. Anyway, we have a system in place where we could move fully socialist in the United States tomorrow, with just like the passing of like a couple of bills. It's not that dramatic of a change from capitalism, but it would go a long way to improving and helping change society in a positive way. At least some of the changes would. I'm not a socialist, but there are some things about it, like having unions baked right into a company automatically. The moment you have more than 3 employees, the other 2 employees are bargaining with you for their pay, Anyway, she obviously doesn't. She says socialists don't understand economics. She doesn't seem to understand anything, let alone socialism.
Look, we already know that socialists don't understand basic economics. They don't understand basic geopolitics. It's not that surprising that they also don't understand humor.
So
Socialists don't understand geopolitics. How could she say something so broad and sweeping like that?
that video started a firestorm. I remember us posting it, and I didn't know how it would do. Obviously, this is not a new concept. There are comedians, late night comedians, who have done this kind of thing.
But they make it very obvious that it's satirical.
Would you mind if I edited this footage to make you look insane?
Bing, 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 bing.
I'll take that as a yes.
So posted it. The next morning, I got...
Yeah, that's not what happened. Also, she is unknown in the sphere. People don't realize that she's not a normal reporter. They can't tell the difference. People know Stephen Colbert is not a normal reporter. It's neither here nor there. The point is that this person is a complete nutcase who misrepresents and lies and twists things around. And wow, have I gotten off the point here. I really have to stick to the point. Just for fun, though.
And what are you doing with that hair? Did you just blow dry your scalp until it resembles a coconut? Is that what you were going for?
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean, to play us out?
Have you ever read Flowers for Algernon?
I love that book. That's such a good book. Oh my God, dude. Flowers for Algernon, about a dude who was mentally disabled. And scientists did a new experiment on him to see if they could, reverse his mental condition. And it worked. He got really, really intelligent, started working on his own case, trying to solve the problem of being like mental disability like that. And then the mouse they experimented on started going downhill, and so did he. It's such a good book. So he's saying he's got a mental disability. Interesting. It's a good book.
Us out. What does that mean? To play us out?
Have you ever read Flowers for Algernon? You remind me of the guy in that story before he got smarter. You
Wow.
remind me of Lenny from Mice and Men, because I think I should take you outside and shoot you before someone else has to kill you for being so stupid.
I don't know what...
Wow, that's rough.
Stupid.
I don't know what that means.
It means you're so dumb, you're practically inhuman. You're like a baboon, but less clever.
What does that mean?
I hate you so much.
All right, go.
Don't yell at me. I'll bounce this binder off that half-deflated basketball you call a face.
That's really funny.
That's tomorrow, and that is it.
Screw this up again, pal. We'll send you over to Fox News.
He was at Inside Edition at the time. That's funny.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with I can't do it.
You are mentally handicapped.
We'll do it live.
You can't even get it right after 5 takes. Why would I agree to do it live?
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
No, fuck you. We're not going to do it live.
Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.
How are you going to write it? You can't even read it.
That's great, right? I love it. This is just for fun. This won't be in the final clip of us talking about Doug Wilson and stuff, but this is great.
You troglodyte homunculus. Last chance. In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
You want to? Let's do this. Let's do this. Come on.
That's good, dude. I love it. That was fantastic. That was from the Webby Awards. That was 14 years ago. Well, anyway, just great. Just absolutely fantastic.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Just the best. I'm sorry. I get off track sometimes, but that was so worth it in my mind. The point is that I guess this woman misrepresents and lies, twists things around, and it's also a trad wife, and these people like that about her, I guess. Anyway, that's what I've got for you today. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. This is absolutely psychotic.